California perspective, good morning, and welcome to, what month is this? It must be February. We're going to Hawaii with the company. It must be February. Good morning and welcome to the February webinar, Why WFG is Better Than Everything Else. You know, and I'm really at a loss right from the beginning of that statement because WFG is not better than my wife. So it's not better than everything else. If you were starving, it's not better than food. You're dying of thirst, it's not better than a drink of water. And so, give me a little bit of literary license here. I'm talking about our industry and building distribution and starting a business, running a business. You know, there'll be a lot of perspectives to this that I'll share. You know, Cindy and I were talking about this morning as we thought about this subject. You know, it's good to review these things. You know, it's sometimes in the heat of the battle, you know, when we're in the trenches and we're, you know, wishing we did our presentations a little better, or this person had joined, or, you know, that kind of thing, or we could get our people moving a little bit faster, we can produce leaders a little more effectively, you know, on and on and on. You want to increase your personal recruiting. As you get kind of immersed in that stuff, sometimes you forget just to step back and kind of count the blessings in situations. That's true sometimes in a family life, certainly true in spiritual life, but it'll be true here for business too. And so, you know, our original, you know, one of our kind of core themes is obviously helping families and doing that internally within what we do for each other as we build our teams and our businesses, you know, and increase our income and start saving more money and all those kind of precious things that happen. And Cindy and I were talking about that phase of our lives when we were in the base shop business and, you know, what we loved about that, you know, how much we really enjoyed the process. There's plenty of work. It was a grind sometimes. We got tired sometimes. Some frustrated us. I mean, that's just part of life. But overall, and this is just not in fondness of memory here, and we really did enjoy the journey, and we knew it as we went. At the same time, we love where we're at now and the control it gives us, and so the exercise of preparing this webinar and has been a good one for us too. And so I'm glad you're on the call. Thanks for the effort to make it on here. And perhaps you can use some of these things and some of this reflection to improve your recruiting, improve your own perspective, and keep things going. So, here we are. Why is, you know, WFG, why is it better than the other ways in the industry? And I guess it could be a little bit of a matter of opinion, but here it certainly is mine. And I think I'm very representative of the leadership team in this instance of this company. And like I said, I'm excited to talk with you about these things. At the beginning, at the outset here, there's some questions I want you to ponder. And I'm going to go through just a bunch of them here. And they're good things to think about. One, why don't we have any meaningful competition? And we don't. There's not any company out there that's effectively competing with us in the marketplace. You know, that's cool. I mean, in that sense, you know. But anyway. But why? Why is this company of ours and our system and our way of doing business so difficult to copy? You know, there've been through the years lots of little splinter groups and even major companies that have tried to start something like what we do, and overwhelmingly they have failed. And at least certainly don't have anywhere but a tiny fraction of the success, you know. But these people that split off, and there haven't been many, seldom get as big as just one of the many major hierarchies we have. Why is that? Why is it so difficult? Why do we lose so few of our good people? I mean, typically in business, in companies, I live here in Silicon Valley, and people are jumping from company to company and doing these kinds of things all the time. And I remember, in the early parts of my career, some of the stuff we wrestled and fought through and all that stuff, and we'd lose some people. But why is it for years now we've lost so few of our good people? I mean, I have so many wonderful people that I've been in business with 10, 15, 20, 25, now 30 and 35 years. Why is that? That's just not a typical thing in our industry. But why? I do plan on answering some of these, just so you know. I'm just not gonna list the question. Why do so many powerful companies want to work with us? We get solicited all the time. Yeah, you have no idea. How many, some selfishly just want access to our field force and don't bring enough to the table, but we got a lot of powerful companies who want access to us. And we have to turn, certainly a number of them away. Why do we have so many excellent compensation contracts? How come? Why is that? There are real reasons, business reasons for that. Because you don't get those things. These last two don't come because of just warm feelings or they heard good talks at a convention. I mean, for companies to want to work with us and give us excellent comp, there are concrete reasons for it. Why do we get so many good people to try our business? Ties back to the good people who stay. Well, we had to get them in the first place. Why do we have so many good people that have joined themselves to us? And we continue to hire in the thousands and thousands and thousands every month. Why? Why do we have a broker-dealer just dedicated to us? Why do we have Transamerica Financial Advisors? It's RBD. And they sold off the rest of it so they could just focus their service and on their relationship with us. And that's not a normal circumstance. Not something you'd stop and think about much. If you're relatively new, it doesn't even occur to you. But that's unusual. BDs usually have lots of distribution, and they've all got to be registered with the broker-dealer. But it's usually represents in the cross section of a number of entities. But here we are, right? Dedicated to us. Why do we have so many leaders making 6 and 7 figures? Why are we so different from the rest of our industry? Why is our platform such a great place to build a business? And ultimately, one of the bottom line questions is, why are we almost impossible to duplicate? Coming back to not having any meaningful competition, what is that struggle? And these are all interesting questions. And good for us, right? That we're difficult to copy. And so many companies want to work with us. We have excellent comp and good people, and we keep them, and powerful broker-dealer, and so many leaders making such great incomes. And it comes down to, why are we so different? Why is our platform so great? We want to kind of answer these questions as we go through. I'm not always going to state the question and give you an answer, so you're going to have to pay attention to the things we're covering here on the slides ahead to understand how all this works together. And I will certainly strive to make it as clear as possible. But good questions to reflect on. And let's talk about something, and this one, in a sense, we didn't create. It's out of our control, so to speak. It's one of those factors that has been putting wind in our sails for a long time, and it continues to be a huge factor in why we occupy the marketplace, in a lot of ways, almost by ourselves. So let's consider. One of the things you want in an opportunity, ideally, if you're building a business, building a company, is you want dramatic market need for what it is you're going to do. I mean, if there wasn't any need for what Google did, nobody had heard of Google. and on and on. But we have had consistent market need, and the word dramatic is there for a reason. It's a substantial market need. And I want to remind you of some of the things, and if you're newer, perhaps you don't have this as clear in your mind, but one of the absolute reasons for the size of our market need is many, including really most, obviously wouldn't be accurate to say all, but almost all, financial companies are focused on the wealthy. And I'm thrilled with some of the regulatory rollback. It looks like it's coming here in the United States. Some things have already been delayed and stuff, but it seems like a lot of the things that regulators do in an effort to serve the consumer end up backfiring. Now, many don't, but some do, and I think some of the stuff that we were looking at coming down the road, this is just my opinion, was going to hurt, the average citizen who needs this kind of help. The wealthy, of course, want to continue to get the help, but when you cut commissions and increase liability, it's hard to want to work with smaller accounts because you take the same amount of risk and get a fraction of the income. Well, our industry's been looking at the marketplace that way for at least a couple of decades now. And so that if somebody doesn't have substantial money to invest or to put down monthly on contracts, insurance contracts, et cetera, savings contracts, that people aren't going to be there to help them because so many companies focus on the wealthy. Many families, obviously, because most families are not wealthy, and many families are dramatically underserved. And so to do a little, iconic visual on it, if that blue square is the marketplace, the industry is kind of focused on that little white square up in the left-hand corner as the group that's going to get most of their attention. I don't get all worked up like some. I used to come from this far right-hand corner, eking out an existence. As a lot of you know, I moved my wife into a mobile home. But it's interesting. As I grew up as a child, I remember people coming to our home to talk to my parents about money matters, financial services stuff, and I would get phone solicitations even as a student to sit down with an agent in the insurance industry and talk to him about, I'm starting out and that kind of thing, time to buy my first insurance policy, but blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line is people were reaching out to the middle class market. Well, that's not there anymore on any scale. Outside of a couple of companies, and we're one of them. And so we have a reality that there's overwhelming need but insufficient distribution. It continues to fuel our opportunity. I've watched it fuel our opportunity. For all the years I've been in the business, most families were pretty dramatically underserved in the United States and Canada, but the industry actually has done less and less in the general marketplace, while the need has continued to increase. And so this gives us a continuing bright future for both recruiting, because people need to make more, and for what we teach financially. And with this, we take this market need, and this explains part of why, things go well, we're making what we make, and we continue to accelerate. There'll be other reasons why we're, when we talk about why we're challenging the duplicate stuff. But this market need factor, I feel bad about it. I mean, I honestly, I wish there were 100 substantial companies or 500 substantial companies reaching out to families. I still think there'd be plenty of room to build a great business and more families being helped faster. But that doesn't seem like it's ever going to be the case in North America and a lot of other countries, but North America where we are. So we're just going to have to keep recruiting people and building teams that become the size of major companies. And so bottom line, we end up competing with ourselves. We're going to have to build teams so vast and so numerous that we answer the need of the marketplace, right? That we're the ones that get people the help they need. It really is up to us. This is one of the things that gets me up in the morning and, and keeps me excited about it when I'm talking to people about it. But let's go ahead. Let's add to this market need what we have done as a company in creating products and services. For those of you who can't see the slide, we have a bunch of logos up here. Nationwide's logo, Voya's logo, Pac Life's logo, of course Transamerica, Prudential American Funds, our Summit, our top individual money management company, and so we take a look at these things, and let's look at what we do, which gives us such power in the marketplace. I'm not here to give you a product presentation by any stretch, but I do want to talk about an overview. And first, let's talk about something that we underrate. And if you're out there listening to this and you aren't doing some version of this for the consumer, for every family you come into contact with, shame on you. But the first thing is really, this is on the service category, a financial needs analysis, where you help a family set goals and you help them develop a plan to reach them. The two things that people don't have overwhelmingly in the marketplace is clearly defined goals, and they certainly haven't developed a plan to reach them. There's incredible power in this. Either direction, there's incredible power if you don't have it, and that power leads you to all kinds of financial struggles, and ultimately it ends up usually in poverty. Whereas if you do it, all kinds of good things happen, and you can build wealth. The needs analysis changes everything. Sitting down with somebody with goals and to develop goals and a plan to make those goals a reality is one of the most wonderful things you can do for somebody, either helping them develop their business or helping them develop a real direction economically in their lives. When we develop that plan, we have a fully diversified product portfolio. Certainly as far as our marketplace goes, we have what our marketplace needs for protecting the family in a number of different ways, and saving money, and in providing security in accumulating that money, tax advantages, these kinds of things, our insurance products, and the full diversity there, but also in diversity in terms of companies and the different kind of nuances to products that these companies represent to fit different situations for the consumer. Most of our clients' needs are pretty straightforward. They need to start saving money in some place decent and safe, and they need to protect it tax-wise, and they need to protect their family in case of a disaster, right? But you take the needs analysis, our diversification, the insurance products, and tied to it our world-class broker-dealer, where we have cutting-edge wealth management platform, our money management products, our mutual funds, our variable annuities. We have these things to take to the consumer, most of whom we sit down and talk about this stuff, they're in the dark about it. They know very little about it. And most of them are pleasantly surprised with their access and how much it can bless them, what good it can do for them financially. I love this stuff. And so you take the need and you take what we have to meet the need, and we have an extraordinary thing. But understand, the market need and the products have been around a long time. I use this analogy for decades probably, that if you have an epidemic and people are dropping dead from it, and you come up with a cure, but you don't get the cure to the people who are sick, that's the same as having no cure. And so we can have the need. People are really hurting from where they are financially, and they really need this kind of analysis done and homework done, and they need these products explained, and they need recommendations, and answers. And if we don't get out there to them, it's the same as there not being a solution. So the next thing we're going to talk about is our unique and very powerful system. Because this is the machine that gets us to the marketplace. Now I want you to understand that our system just didn't arrive today. It's been developed over decades. And one of the aspects that we miss, so it's interesting, I bet you there are a lot of leaders out there that hardly ever mention this. And yet, if this aspect weren't in place, we would never have gotten here. You know, Canada's had to wrestle with what I'm about to mention off and on because they tried, meaning, you know, our competitors and sometimes people who just didn't take a shine to the way we do things, have tried to stop us by eliminating this as an option. But we have fought back through the years, and wonderful things have occurred. And so what am I talking about? The power of letting people start part-time. Overwhelmingly in our industry, people have to start full-time. Companies invest money in them, and they get offices and computers and all this support and all that stuff, and they expect a full-time commitment, and they have to jump in with both feet and all that stuff. So what does letting people start part-time do? Well, one, it allows someone like me to start in the business, you know, or a lot of other people. Most good people, not all, but most good people are already working. They have full-time jobs. And so you couldn't get the kind of people, the quality of person that we want to get if they have to just jump in the deep end. You know, when they start teaching kids to swim, they usually start them in the shallow end. When you're merging onto a freeway, you usually just don't turn right into traffic that's going 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. You use an on-ramp. Well, it's crazy, but our industry hasn't done this effectively. They want that total control. And so they're not able to bring to the company the numbers of people that are needed. So how can we recruited over 12,000 people, you know, last month in the U.S. and Canada? You know, one of the fundamental reasons, how many of them would not have started if we told them they had to jump in? This was it, full-time or nothing. You know, we wouldn't have these kind of recruiting numbers. And what this allows us to do with a part-timer is very important things. One, we reduce the pressure, and I've already given the swimming analogy. You know, if we just throw you in the deep end and hope you work it out, you know, if that's what we did, if that's what a trainer did, is trying to teach you were a swim instructor, and all you did is throw little kids in the deep end and say good luck, you know, we'd lose a lot of folks. And so we reduce the pressure. And so now we can make the on-ramp as long as you need it to be to get up to speed. Or to find out sometimes you just don't have the heart for it. Or maybe you didn't have as much drive as you thought you did, or you know, whatever it is. Or you just, you know, we've all tried things and go, you know, you know, that, but we want people to be in a position where that's their choice, where they don't have to find out in some devastating hard way. You think about how most businesses are started. You know, people have to get a whole bunch of money, start a restaurant, get a space, you know, pay for the kitchen, hire a bunch of people, and then hope people start coming through the door. I had a friend who started a couple of friends who started restaurants and really went through that struggle and fought it and closed them. It just was hard getting enough money, you know, and all that stuff. Here, and you know, like in my situation, I got to speed my part-time income replaced my full-time income. That was not a tough choice because I loved the business too. I found that out, you know, and both from a leadership side and from what we did in the marketplace. And so for all these decades, we've been recruiting a different quality of person, putting them in a situation where we're not under a bunch of pressure. We've had a bunch of people that took a long while to really get rolling, and then did it. And so what this creates too, when you don't have people under a whole bunch of financial pressure, in the majority of situations, people are working with natural markets, where they have relationship, certainly to start out, and all of this, we found out that our system, our unique, powerful system, has above industry average persistency. For extended stretches, we've had better than industry average mortality because we don't have people cheating or sneaking people through that have bad health. Our people, it doesn't occur to them to do that. We've had very good regulatory experience, because again, you remove the pressure, you remove a lot of bad decision making and some cheating and some stuff like that people tend to do when they're under that kind of gun. But it all starts with having a different quality of person, and you combine these things and you start to get a glimmering of the understanding you need about our system, knowing that the part-time feature is a huge factor in everything, all the success that we've had. Remove it, we're not here. Most of you aren't here. And bottom line is, this is just a better way to build a business. Just because now you have low cost, low overhead. Maybe there's a little fee for plugging in an office. For most people, not even that, not early. You have a license fee, but I mean, the scale of starting a business and what that kind of overhead is, try and start a manufacturing operation. My son-in-law and I were talking about a business here at Silicon Valley where they're starting out, and they just need $500,000 just to barely get started in working on an app, and it'll need a lot more money than that, and that's like most businesses. And the kind of capital it takes to get started to make the thing work. And shoot, if I had that kind of conversation when I was first showing up at a BPM or a corporate overview or whatever you want to call it, a recruiting presentation, I'd have come and gone. Well, nobody had ever approached me to begin with. And because of that, again, less risk, less pressure. And within that scenario, there are other reasons this is a better way to start a business. But these aspects of our system of low cost, low overhead, creating less risk and less pressure, and the part-timers allowing us to create a different quality of person, creating a different experience for starting and building a business, which improves everything important about our business and how we interact with the consumer. It is a marvelous thing. And this is one of the reasons we're so effective in the marketplace, one of the reasons we continue to grow year after year, and that our people are experiencing what they are. It's easier to build teams. It's not easy to build teams, but it's easier to build teams in this kind of setting environment using part-timers than it would be in any other way in our industry. And there's more of that I want you to understand. So let's go ahead and continue to talk about what makes us so different. Let's just map out the traditional industry model here. And you start with a company, a manufacturer. Let's pick one. So you take New York Life, and this is how things have been done for 100 years. And you can talk about Prudential the same way. You just go on and on and on through the industry and through the companies. And this is how it's been done. They approach a brokerage or an agency, and they give them a contract. And the company wants to give them as little as possible, but still get them, right? And so the agency gets a contract, and then it keeps a portion of that and starts setting up contracts with individual reps, and that's the business. Company gives a contract and a compensation level, a percentage to the brokerage or the agency. They have agents or reps. If you're registered reps in the securities industry, you're investment advisors in that world, and you're, of course, agents in the insurance world. And that's the business. If you're looking at this, it's such a simple structure. But the problem is, the representatives can only go so far. They can't get to the agency position and hold that, and without going around or leaving their agency. And so the incentive from the top, from the brokerage to the agency, I'll just call it agency, is to hold representatives back or hold their agents back. This agent's coming to the agent, the guy who owns the agency and says, I love you and everything, but man, I want a higher contract. And no, you don't. You don't want our kind of headaches that the owner's going to say, and all the hassles and all this stuff. I wish I was just back in the field selling, and my life is simple like yours. And maybe the agent buys it for a little while longer, or maybe doesn't buy it right from the beginning. And so the agent's either going directly to the company and saying, hey, I love so-and-so, but I don't need them anymore. I want the contract you gave him or her. Well, now the company's got an issue. They either say no and they lose that guy, or they say yes and the agency loses them. And so this is happening all the time. The agents are going around to the company direct to try and get their own contract, build their own little agency, constantly losing their people. I mean, shoot, I watched this in my dad's gardening business. He'd bring on people, really show them the ropes, show them how to get it done. They'd be a manager, have a truck, and have a route. And my dad had gotten these customers and stuff, a shopping center or office building or whatever it was, and, doing his maintenance business. And bingo, the guy get where he knew his stuff and understood it and understood what equipment he needed, saved a little money, and bought some stuff, got a truck, and bang, we'd lose some of these jobs. They'd come in, underbid it, and and this kind of thing, and he was constantly training his competition. And that's what this industry's been doing forever. And only appropriate because they're holding folks back. Because, just to restate it, in order for the representative to advance, they usually have to leave. And so the agency is constantly losing their best people. The better the person is, the faster they lose them. Again, we don't talk about this much, but this is a reality in the rest of the industry outside of our model. And this model slows two things. Ready for what it slows? Leadership development and growth. Isn't that wonderful? The last two things you want to slow down is overall growth, in the number of people in your business and the production, and the leadership development that comes from that, from among those people. But that's what the traditional industry model is. They fought that for, seriously, over 100 years, doing things that way, and it's a shame. I'm glad I never experienced it. I couldn't even count the number of people I've talked to in the industry who face that constantly. And so let's talk about what we did. I mean, a lot of thought's gone into what we developed. It just didn't pop up one day and we said, oh, look, there it is. Let's use that model. We really thought about this, and I've had the privilege to be right in the thick of this in development and participate in it and contribute to it, along with many others. But this has been an amazing experience. It's one of the reasons we understand it so well, right? This is an organic experience for us, not an academic one, like it is for a lot of you right now. I'm kind of explaining this like I was teaching a class. But we fought through this and have wrestled these things, and so let's talk about the development of our hybrid model, because we really are a hybrid, and what is it? What are we a hybrid of? We're a hybrid of the traditional agency, which has these common weaknesses. It has an incentive to hold people back. They struggle to keep good people. Because of that, there's often little loyalty in it. low energy. I mean, some of these places you go in there are like morgues. You know, they just, because people aren't as upwardly mobile, you're just selling and, you know, and anyway, there it is. A negative environment quite often because of this. High stress, a slow or no growth pattern. Yay, right? Oh, goody. I want a business that has these aspects, these attributes. But the traditional industry and agency wrestles this constantly. Now, but it's not without its strengths, though, because they've existed and have done business and created a lot of business, created a, you know, ultimately over decades and decades, 100+ years, a trillion-dollar industry. But their common strengths are, taken from the traditional side, a lot of quality training, both in products and understanding and how to sell and those things. Some real aspects of professionalism, powerful products the industry has developed for the consumer. The products are a lot better than their distribution, I promise you that. And our industry has great earning potential. All right, we'll talk more about that too when we come to answer the question why we have so many people making so much money. But you take these common strengths, quality training, professionalism, powerful products, great earning potential. You don't want to lose those, but you sure would like to lose the weaknesses. All right, now let's talk about what we'll call a non-traditional model. You know, the traditional model has a production focus. A non-traditional model, and I would put the multi-level companies in here, have a recruiting focus. But they have a bunch of weaknesses too that I don't like. There's often no standard for participation. Quite often weak training in a lot of these companies. You usually have to buy a whole bunch of product. You have to buy a bunch of inventory and stuff, even before you know if you can sell the stuff or want to, right? It frequently lacks professionalism. It's quite often ostentatious and lacks financial discipline. Don't think we don't have to pay attention to that. We got some boneheads in our company that really wrestle with that too. But you get this get-rich-quick mentality that they talk about that kind of makes me want to throw up. And there's low entry-level earnings, you know, in the non-traditional model, you know, where you're selling little things and you got to recruit jillions of people and get a big volume just to make enough money to have it be meaningful, sometimes even part-time, right? They don't have that kind of earning potential we have in the traditional industry, right? And so these are the common weaknesses. And you know what? When I look at the traditional agency, I don't want those. When I look at non-traditional distribution, there's a lot of that in varying industries in our countries. I don't like those weaknesses. But the non-traditional model really has some substantial strengths. It's positive and inspirational. They had to learn how to be super positive and inspirational because people aren't going to be making much money. Over in the traditional industry, in our industry, they go, look, you can go make a bunch of money, go do it. I shouldn't have to jack you up if you can go make a bunch of money. Over here, a lot of these people weren't going to be making any money, sometimes for a long time, hardly any. And so they got really good at being inspirational, at pushing people up and motivating them and creating a high-energy environment. Over here, you have very clear business ownership and some substantial growth potential. Well, I think probably you'd understand that we'd want to build a company that started eliminating the weaknesses on both sides of this chart and adopted the strengths from both sides of this chart. And you're right. That's exactly what we've done with our hybrid model. Our hybrid agency system, for lack of better words to describe it, combine production and leadership development. We have a lot of emphasis on production and moving stuff, but a ton on leadership development. So our agency system takes the strengths of both models and avoids the common weaknesses. And so we institute quality training, professionalism, powerful products, great earning potential in a high-energy environment that's positive and inspirational, powerful business ownership that even allows you to move from one generation to the next, and then from that generation to the next one after that, which is awesome. It's what Sam Walton did with Walmart, right? I'd like to do it with my business too. You know, and and with all that continuing growth potential. That's why we continue to have one good year after another. And this system, this hybrid model, which really puts a lot of emphasis on both production and the recruitment of people and the leadership development from that group, has created a different environment. Look, we wanted to be pumped up and have high energy and have great earning potential. What a wonderful combination. And we have worked hard at doing that. And that's why companies come to our conventions, our events, and look at the energy level and look at the way we recognize people and make heroes out of them, you know, and give out these rings and take them on trips and do all this stuff. And they're kind of dumbfounded because they go other places and there's none of that kind of energy. and of course, there's none of that kind of growth. I remember talking to some people that were in leadership early on in Transamerica that started working with us, and they almost got hooked on it. Like we were a little bit, we were addictive, because you get around here and people are pumped up and optimistic and thinking about all the things that are possible, and and excited to be a part of it, and are changing their lives. Yeah. And so this model is killer. And I want you to understand how powerful it is and how different it is, and yet how strangely challenging it is to duplicate it. The industry guys, when they try to duplicate this, they're just miserable failures. The multi-level guys want it all to be easier and shortcut, and don't like to have to do the training and, and all the product stuff and the sales stuff and, crazy. We're the best of both worlds. And I'm going to say it again, good for us. I love that aspect. Now let's talk about making money for a few minutes. One of the cool things about the way we do stuff is we have 3 simple but straightforward and powerful ways to earn income. One is we can personally produce. And I remember that's what I had when I started. Didn't have a team, wasn't making overrides. Got out there part-time, actually had some success, had 23 sales my first month, and after getting licensed, and I made just a great part-time income. It's like 3 times my full-time income, which is both a statement to how excited I was about that and how poor my full-time income was. But I was able to triple it just with my personal production. But we started recruiting too, and I remember, then the first few guys getting licensed, and we'd field trained them already, and they went out and wrote some business, and I remember my first override. I'd never had an override before, I'd never had somebody go and do something and I wasn't there and make income from that. But I'm going to use the word again, this is kind of an exhilarating thing when it happened. You're going to probably think sound like I'm silly. But the reality is, my first override was, I don't know, $84 or something like that. But it was $84 that I'd never had before, where I had to be there and work the hours, or in this case early on, sell the product myself, turn their override. Well, then we ended up with 8 licensed people, and then 22 licensed people, and 30 licensed people, and all of a sudden I was earning, 5 figures a month. And I'm stunned by this. This happened in my first year after licensing. And because we got, and still out field training and personal producing, but now the overrides were coming in. We continued to personal recruit and field training. And so we got wider and wider, and we had more and more people working and building their own businesses, and I was overriding them too. And it just continued to grow. We had to work at it. It didn't. Sometimes people try to explain this thing. Oh, you get a few people, and then they get a few people. It just goes on without you. That's a lie. I almost said another word. That's a lie. It is not. You got to work at this. You got to develop people. You got to communicate with them. You got to train them. You got to support them. You got to get them through the tough times, and you got to learn to deal with. Back, some people will quit on it, and you got to get some more and train them, and that's what leadership's all about. But the reality is, when you take your production and your field training and you add to that the overrides, and then you pick up the third area of our industry, which is a continuing income stream. There's a residual income, comes from renewals on insurance products, trails and stuff on securities products, and assets, and the money you continue to earn from assets under management. And this thing turns out to be a pretty wonderful thing. I was in a home of somebody 2 nights ago, and this guy's been doing what he's been doing for a long time, and he said to me, you know, I really would entertain the thought of doing something. And this guy's in his 60s, right? Around my age. I'd really like to do something different from what I've been doing. You know, and I said, well, we're going to have a serious conversation about that. You know, and I talked to him about what he'd have to do to get a good little bit, get a business going, and to get some consistent income coming from a continuing income stream, and that caused his eyes to light up. He liked that thought. You know, and so I love how we earn in our industry, and I love the power of it. And when you combine these three things, that's why you've got so many 6-figure earners, and why you've got so many 7-figure earners in our company, and why we've got multiple 7-figure earners. I promise you couldn't personally produce it that way unless you were like an absolute once-in-a-generation freak of a lifetime, you know. But when you take all three of these, we really got a chance to win. And something we don't always look at enough, you know, or explain to people enough, is I'm going to talk about building a base shop. I think 2017 needs to be the year of the base shop. I know that's going to be our continuing theme, and a lot of teams, I've watched them and heard it in their wealth bowls, and you're going to hear it in Hawaii, for those of you that are Hawaii qualifiers. But let's talk about base shop earning potential, right? And let's just talk about you building a team. And I remember when I got to this after a year, and actually we were ahead of this after a year, where you get to be, you know, a 25-app base shop. You're right. And let's just talk insurance contracts. You write 25 insurance contracts a month, and let's say you do 7 of them personally, and you're, you know, in your field training and stuff, and you have, a few teams, you know, and they do 6 each, you know, and so obviously it doesn't take much. You get 3 teams doing that, you know, and you add 7 to that, it's 25. So you're doing that 7, and you got 3 teams that are doing 6 apps per team, and the average target, or you know, their average premium is $2,000, which is below the company average. You know, so that's $12,000 total premium, you know, per team. And what this creates, and of course $14,000 for you. And so that's the volume, but it's a 25-app base shop. It's easy to figure out that that's 50,000 in production, 2,000 times 25. And you start taking how this works. The simple majesty and power of it for building a business is awesome. It's incredible. Again, we get so caught up in the doing, we forget how extraordinary this is and how special our company is because of it. And you're able to build these teams because you're letting people start part-time and take that on-ramp. And it's low overhead and low risk. And so it's easier to recruit people. There's a reason we've recruited people, you know, over the time that we have with the numbers that we have. But now let's start playing with it. You start as a senior marketing director, you know, and you talk about an SA team, and you talk about the marketing director's basic contract, the percentage of comp, and the senior associate's percentage of comp, and it creates a 25% spread. And when this team does 12,000, 25% of that is 3,000 in earnings and override. I guess if you just had one of those, that'd still be a decent part-time income, you know. And now we're not taking into account any chargebacks at this point and all this. We're not taking any residual income coming in either, you know. And so let's just talk about this a second. Doesn't take long, but it's fun to talk about. Now you also might have an associate team direct to you, right? An associate team did 6 apps, and you might have 7 associates reporting to you that you now field train, and they're capable on their own. But you override that team, in your contract, and there's a 35%. So if you had an associate team do that kind of production, You make $4,200 in override to add to the $3,000. I like that. It's fun. I liked it when it was happening to me. Right? You might have some training associates you're working with, right? Splitting sales. Right? You've got your contract and they've got theirs. And so you get out and you write business in that situation, or they're on top of their game, right? And they've been field trained. Now they're going to go out and start doing this on their own. You're in a 50% override when they make a sale. If there were 6 sales in that group, right, there it is. Boom. You earn 50% of the 12,000 or 6,000. Your personal production's at 80%. This is why you need to get out and personally produce and field train, so that, you know, the field training, you're duplicating yourself, so you can build training associates to senior associates, of course, you know, to MDs, and you're in this override. And this is not including if you have MD contracts, you know, and you have more senior leaders in your base, you know, you're override of that, but you do 80% of 12,000 points yourself. It's, you know, you kind of know what's happening here. Actually, you did 7 apps, that's 14,000. So you did 7 apps, 80% of that's 11.2. Bottom line to all of this, cash flows 24.4, annual cash flows 292,000. You know, you do half this much, well then, what is it? 146,000. You do 25% of this, cut the 146 in half. Right, which is what, 23 and 50, or 73,000, which would be a great part-time income. And this all takes work, and you got to show up, and you got to stay focused, and you got to keep talking to people about having a better life, you know, and talk to them about how much good we have to do in the marketplace, and building people that are jacked up to help people, right? But this is a powerful thing. This is not a huge business, but it's a great income. You go out in the marketplace, and there aren't that many people making that kind of money. And if they are, they've had to do a whole lot more, take bigger risks, invest more of their own dollars, all that kind of stuff. I love our business. I love its earning potential. This kind of represents the simple picture of personal production and overrides, 2 of the 3 ways we make money. But it continues. You know, if you look at this, and you did a 50 app base shop, you know, or a 75 app base shop, or a 100 app base shop, consistently doing, well, 100 be 200,000 points, right? 75 be 150,000 points, 50 be 100,000 point base shop, and you were, right, in insurance premium points, and I'm talking about here, I mean, take $500,000 or 800,000 or 1.1. These are not normal figures, and this doesn't run and jump in your lap. And there's plenty of work to do, but it's nice to know that it's out there and that this kind of potential is there and that we have these kinds of things. Now, you all of a sudden start generating other overrides and building other senior marketing directors besides you, and we played with some numbers here. It's all we're doing. This isn't the kind of thing you go out and show the general marketplace. You know, you could have 1,000 footnotes and explanations and all of this stuff. But within the field here and with our own teams, I want you to understand what's going on here. You know, that if you are producing SMDs and they average 25,000 points in production in premium every month, you know, and their average target was 2,000, kind of taking the same stuff, and we played with different things. What if you had 10 firsts doing that? You know, and earning on what we earn on Transamerica products. You had 10 firsts doing 25,000 points at the override you get at first generation as an SMD. That would be $42,005. And again, that's before chargebacks, any of that kind of stuff. But there it is. If you had 20 seconds doing that, you'd see that would be 40,000 overrides. It just keeps going, and how you create this stuff. And we showed this is building a 190-person marketing director team, structured 10 first, 20 seconds, and then 40 at each third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. This would take you a while to do. But if you did, that's an extraordinary thing. And we have people obviously, in this situation, earning these kind of cash flows. And I'm proud of them. But again, if you did half this much, it'd be 1.15. And if you did, 25% this much, accordingly, it'd be $500,000. Plus, I'd be almost $600,000 in overrides, in addition to what your base shop was earning and what you were personally producing. I love the earning power of our industry. I love the good bottom line that we get a chance to do inside of every family's home with what we have and the difference we make. I've been proud of this for a long time. We didn't build this without a lot of thought. Most of the industry is just personal production. It's hard to build an agency, hard to keep good people. Here you don't have to hold people back. They get to have your contract. They get the same quality of opportunity. They get to build leaders and continue to override them. They're doing their job right. Their retention's going to be pretty dang good. We've watched that through the years. And our good ones have a chance to accelerate and go on to greatness, and they don't have to go somewhere else to do it. This is an incredible thing to represent to you. And I'm super proud of it, as is the rest of our leadership team. All right, let's head in for our finish here. So we have great timing. We have fewer agents in the industry, registered reps, and advisors. Companies continue to go backwards in size that way. There's increasing uncertainty and fear of the future in the marketplace. That's true politically too. And that's a motivator for people to want to do the kind of stuff we do, set those goals, develop a plan, do them with the kind of products and services we provide. Right? There's greater need and less industry capacity to help people, because we have fewer. So we have all of this going for us. People are more receptive and willing to listen. I remember in the kind of the devastation of 2008 and what happened in the markets worldwide and here in our countries. And I remember, I've talked about this before in webinars recently even. Cindy coming to me, are we okay? And I said, baby, watch what happens now, because we really rock it. We really take off when there's more fear and more uncertainty and more doubt, and because people listen better, they're more receptive, and we have the products and services to answer those doubts and fears. So it's great timing for our model, great timing for our products, and great timing for you to build a business. Love it. Love it. Here's another reason why we're so difficult to copy and to duplicate. We have great character-based leadership in WFG, both in the field and the corporate side. This is by far the most important thing. No matter how much you have going your way, how good your system is, how good your business platform is, how good your support is, how good your contracts are, how good your comp plan is, man, if you don't hold it together character-wise, you're not going to be able to make it happen. People won't follow you. Companies won't keep doing business with you, because nobody wants to do business with people they can't trust. And so we get good decision-making, again, both corporate and in the field. Because of this, we have excellent mentoring and coaching from a team that has been together in large part for decades in senior leadership. A long time. I look in the eyes of people that I know what they're thinking, they know what I'm thinking. It's one of those well-oiled machines. Doesn't mean we don't ever disagree. But I tell you one thing we got going back and forth, and that's a lot of mutual respect. Another thing that is evidence of our character-based leadership is we don't think short-term, we think long-term. We're not trying to please Wall Street with some quarterly report for some stock thing every minute. That doesn't fill our waking hours. We're thinking about the consumer. We're thinking about the teams. We're thinking about what you can build here over the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I sit down with leaders and talk about, take a look at the next 20, 30, 40 years of your business life. You'll be leaving this to your children. You'll have accumulated $100 million or more than that. You know, I mean, just what wonderful conversations to have with people. The fact that it's true, that we can be thinking in those terms and making those kind of things a reality, wow. I love this thing. So we're long-term thinkers. That is so much more important than most of you sitting right here understand. You know, you get so much trouble thinking short-term. If I tried to raise my children just thinking short-term, that would have been a disaster in our family. We tried to build our marriage just thinking short-term. We pay attention to now and today. We're constantly thinking long-term about how to treat each other and live our lives. Same way in leadership here in the business. I love the fact that we have absolute dedication to the consumer. This is why we're here. This is the heart of it all. And that's why if you ever forget that, then your character's weakening. We stay dead to the consumer, and we keep serving our team, and we're going to be just fine. Our model has plenty of power then. But we got to stay dedicated to the consumer and doing what's right every time. Sometimes that even means walking away. And taking care of each other. We're going to like what's going to keep happening to us. So we stay dedicated to the consumer, dedicated to the team. We have character-based leadership, and this is the most important thing about our machine right now. And this is the toughest thing to duplicate. The toughest thing to duplicate. To build the army of people that we have that are this way. But you take our comp system, you take how we've designed our hybrid agency operation, you take the pieces of the puzzle, and you'd like the part-timers and all of this stuff, you combine it, and this is the best place in the industry to be. That's absolutely my opinion. I have absolute conviction about it. You hear it in the tone of my voice. If you were right here in front of me, you'd see it in my body language, in the look in my eye, my facial expression. This is the best place to build a business in our industry. It'd be impossible to duplicate on your own. It'd be a massacre. There's no other company you can join where you get what we've got, and there's a reason we're the major player. All right. That finishes this one, but let me tell you what's coming up. Our next webinar in the great month of March will be avoiding killer leadership mistakes. It's been a while since I've covered this kind of subject, and a lot of you are not avoiding your killer leadership mistakes. And so we're going to talk about that, and I want you to listen to that webinar next month in the terms of yourself. Don't pretend. Don't be looking around thinking I'm talking about somebody else. I'm talking to you. I've got to pay attention to these things. You've got to pay attention to these things. All right? In other words, how to not set your foot in the trap like that little guy stepping over that bear trap is doing. You want to avoid these things, but you got to know what they are. You got to clearly understand what they are, and also clearly understand how to avoid them. Right? Because I'm going to talk about this, but I'm going to put it in the positive. Right? So that'll be March 8th, second Wednesday, of course, of March. At the same time, I'm fired up to give it. Avoiding killer leadership mistakes. I'm going to save some careers, and I'm going to enhance and supercharge some others. When you start getting out of these traps, it's a lot easier to build a business. And if you can avoid them from the beginning, that's even better, isn't it? All right. Love being in business with you. Some of you I'm going to see in Hawaii here. We head out Saturday. And I'm looking forward to a whole bunch of great mentoring sessions with the greatest people in our industry. Proud of you. Thank you for everything. You just joined. Thanks for joining. All right. I love it, and I love you guys. Bye.